Hello, and welcome to the first in our series of Photoshop tutorials. We'll be starting today by showing you how to create a new document in Photoshop. To get started, open your Photoshop program. From there, you can easily begin creating a new document by using the drop-down window under File. Click on File to see the drop-down window. After that, the first command you see in the drop-down window is New. Click on New to start creating a new document in Photoshop. Once the new document window opens up, specify what name you want to give the document, and change the settings as you see fit. You can change the width, height, resolution, color mode, and more. These will change the size of the document and what you'll have to work with. Once you've done that, you'll be ready to start creating your new Photoshop image. Now you can start putting to digital paper anything in your imagination. Hello, and welcome to the second in our tutorials in Photoshop. This time, we'll start by showing off some of the most common Photoshop selection tools. First, make sure you have your Photoshop open and a document ready. As you can see, we've got our document ready and can now select anything on the image. Selection tools help you pick and choose what you want out of the image you're currently editing. We'll start by using the rectangular selection tool you'll see here. By selecting the rectangular selection tool, you can click and drag a selection of any size you want on your image. This will allow you to select exactly what you want from the image, albeit in a rectangle or a square. This is the most common form of selection in an image. From there, we can switch the selection tool by going over to the rectangle selection tool, right-click on it, and see a drop-down box of other selection tools. We'll switch to the elliptical marquee tool, which allows us to select things on the image not in a rectangular pattern, but in an oval or circle pattern. Once you've selected something with these tools, you might be ready for a little more advanced selection tool, which will allow you to select things in a creative way, the lasso tool. The lasso tool is more interesting than the previous tools because it allows you to select things in a more controlled manner. Your precise movement of the mouse while holding down the left mouse button will allow you to draw out a selection of your choice. As you can see, the tool allows us to create our own selection exactly this way, but it can be very messy if you don't have practice with it. The final selection tool we'll talk about that is common in use is the magic wand. The magic wand is a tool that allows Photoshop to think about what you're trying to select and select them as you click on the parts of the image with the tool. Observe. As you can see, the magic wand has allowed us to select only part of this image, not all of it. It would take many more clicks to get this image the way we wanted, so it may be time-consuming. And that's it for the common selection tools and their uses. Welcome to the third tutorial in our Photoshop series. Before we move on to other topics, let's talk about some of the file types and modes that you will be using to save various files that Photoshop can do. Photoshop can save many different file types, and each one can have a different use in other projects. The default file type that Photoshop wants to use is a PSD file. If you see here, I have saved my previous file that I had opened into a PSD file after we have selected parts of it. A Photoshop data file will allow you to have layers, which are editable and a lot easier to manage. Moving on from there, we can see that the document that I have open next is a JPEG file. What happened to the checkerboard background? That was the transparency of my previous image, which a JPEG does not support. What if we want to have an image that's not a PSD, not a JPEG, but supports transparency? The file format that can do that is called a PNG. A PNG image allows the transparent data from the PSD to be saved and used, so you can have interesting images and projects that look professional instead of blocky white backgrounds. Next, there's a file format that you might come across that Photoshop can use. It's called the PDF. A PDF, or portable document format, is usually used on readers like Acrobat Reader. With Photoshop, you can open it, however. It will ask you to import the file instead of just reading it normally. The import window here is kind of similar as a new document file. Here I will change the resolution so that the image that we have will show up smaller than before, as I need to use it for other projects that require a smaller image. These are just a few of the image file formats you will use in Photoshop, and of course, you can save any of these formats into another format if you need to, which will allow you to fulfill many different needs for your future projects. Hello, and welcome to the fourth tutorial in our Photoshop series. In this tutorial, we'll talk about how to crop and resize images, as well as explain what resolution is and how you can get it to work for you. Let's get started. With a Photoshop document open, you can see that I have the image ready to be manipulated. What we'll do today is show off how to crop parts of the image if you need some bits of it for your projects. To crop, click on the crop image icon on the left here. This is actually one of two ways we can crop the image as well, and I'll show the second in a moment. After you click it, like before, drag a selection out of what you want to crop the image to. Cropping the image means you select those parts of the image and only those parts. When you're ready, right-click and select Crop. The second way we can crop the image is to go back, select an area with the Selection tool, and click Crop from the Image drop-down menu. Next, we'll go over how to resize an image. Resizing is a great way to get an image into a smaller or larger specified size for a client on a job or a project you're working on. First, have your image ready, then click the Image drop-down menu. Click Image Size. From there, you can see we have a menu similar to our initial new document window, where you can change the size of the image. If the little link icon is there, this means that the image will keep its ratio as you change the size. Change the size to whatever you wish, and it will do it for you after you press OK. Need something at 800 width? It'll change the size of the image to fit that width and change the height accordingly. Lastly, I'll talk about resolution. As you can see here on the Image Size Properties window, you can see here that the resolution is 72 pixels per inch. That means the image itself will not be very large. If we change it to something like 300 pixels per inch, the image will be very large, and this is a good way to get your image to scale up quickly for banners, or scale it down so that you can fit it inside a smaller file size.